gas ourselves up, but we short on breath. Talking about we eating, but who we really cooking. Dreaming about greens, but ain't nobody looking. No land, no acres, no seeds in the ground. When the hunger hits, who's gonna be around? We starving every day, and it just ain't the food. Feeding the hood garbage, got 'em acting a fool. We flossing with rides, stunting with chains, but these bars we spitting just bring more pain. We guilty as hell, preaching all these lies, selling debt to the kids, and we acting surprised. We commercialize the pain, broadcast the grief, tell the youth to hustle, but hide the beef. We glorify the trap, invite them to the flames, just like Reagan brought the crack on planes back in the 80s when the streets got soaked. My people, my brothers, all got choked. Reagan said no trades, but we know the deal. He left us in the dirt. Man, that shit was real. I was just a shorty watching it unfold, old enough to see how we got sold. War on drugs, but it was war on us. Cops on our necks, no love, no trust. They labeled us thugs, beast on the block, made us kiss the pavement while they cleaned our clock. Prison became business thanks to Reagan's game. Free labor is the truth in America's name. Slavery's dead, man. That's just a word. Read the 13th Amendment, it's still absurd. They lock us in cages, serving time for life. Double digits for wisdom, cutting sharp like a knife. I'm here to say, the chains in the air, it's time we break free, start showing we care. No more flexing for nothing, no more selling out. It's time to rise up, time to end the drought.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And you already know how I start this. Independent music, and I have Damani for Everlasting Part 2. And I'll be right back right after this.
Put your panties to the side. This gon' be the best love you made in your life.
This finna be on that playlist that you get faded and naked to my boo. Drop the location, know that I'm racing. Cake don't taste as good as you. I remix it, I lean in it. You fiendin' for this rocket. I seen it through them jeans, know that I needed some of that not you. He can do you like I can. I got ways to get it up out you. How your waist moving, sensational, and your face so pretty in my hands. Pay no mind to who's watching. They wish they could move how we vibing. Take that iPhone on your pocket, bae, and jot it, hey. 678-8825, 741, my bae. Hit my phone when you play this song. Give you what you want, my bae. Come my way. Give me that call and I'm on my way. Good time written all on your face. Fifth time, back to back. This time, she gon' look at me and say,
you cannot leave me this forever lasting. Yeah. I mean this forever, ever, no. Yeah. I gave you my love, I did it with some passion. Yeah. You cannot just leave this love again. No, nah, no, nah. No, 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 no. No, never. No, nah, no, nah. No, 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 no. No, never. Oh, nah, nah, nah. Can you teach me how to love? Put nobody above you. Wanna show my love for you, but my love language is different.
It's up, babe. Turning off my phone, don't want no calls. It's just us, babe. Don't want no one to interrupt me. It's not too strong, be down and we gon' waste it. Let's pour it up 3 shots and then we naked. You mindin', baby, that's what it is. Don't be shy, we going in, yeah. I want you morning, noon, and in the night. Make love just like how you fantasize. You got my heart and I won't compromise. How I feel about you, girl, I just can't deny, yeah. Don't you run away, get lost or hide. Cause I don't know what I would do without my love. Oh, no, 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 never.
first time that we met, we talked for hours and hours. Tell me about your ex and how it went sour. Yeah, I know you hurt, but forget about buddy. Forget all the times that he treated you muddy. You got a presence that I'm trying to study. You ran into me, so I'm guessing you lucky. I want you here, I'm with you, beloved. I want your wrist and your whole body flooded. I want your friends to gossip about us. My bae independent like Floater and Russ. Just like the soda, bae, I'm trying to crush. We both got our ways, but we can adjust. I'm trying to build some more than lust. Let's take our time, we ain't gotta rush.
cannot leave me this forever lasting. Yeah. I mean it's forever, ever, no. Yeah. I gave you my love, I did it with some passion. Yeah. You cannot just leave this love again. No, nah, no, nah. No, 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 no. No, never. No, nah, no, nah. No, 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 no. No, never. I'll take it slow for you. My heart too cold for you. It ain't no holding you. Wish I was close to you. It ain't no holding you. It ain't no holding you.
Hey, that was Damani for Everlasting. Today I want to talk about due process or no accountability. Money missing and lines being drawn. So good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody's good. It's Monday. I hope everybody knows that we have committee hearings going on both in the Senate and the House. And please pay attention to what's going on. And one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was how peace officers excluded from discipline for inclusion on Brady and Gigolo lists and report required. I think this is something that a lot of people need to sit here and have conversations about. Because HF 962 is really, really, I feel like, going to put us backwards and not forward when it comes to police accountability. So here's the bill right here, and a couple things that I wanted to go over, right? So this is Paul Novotny's bill. And to me, this is not truth and transparency. This is us taking steps way backwards and not really nowhere near accountability, right? So a part of this is subsection 14A is that peace officer disclosure is a peace officer may not be discharged, disciplined, or threatened with discharge or discipline by a state, county, or municipal law enforcement agency based upon a prosecutor's determination that the officer failed to identify or make expulsory evidence available to the appropriate party in an ongoing prosecution, or because the peace officer is included on a Brady and Gigolo list. For the purpose of the subdivision, a Brady Gigolo list means a designation of peace officers whom a prosecutor deems to be Brady impaired, including peace officers who may not have disclosed all impeachment information or who may have violated any pretrial discovery rule requiring peace officers to make available all evidence that might be used to exonerate a defendant in an ongoing prosecution. This one to me is really, I'm against this, right? Because there are so many people that are still locked up because not only were they railroaded by a prosecutor, but also from the Minneapolis Police Department. And that is something that we don't have conversations about. Let's be honest. This is everybody says that we want to be transparent. We want to, police in our communities to be not bad cops. And to me, if they really get rid of this Brady and Gigolo, to me, it puts us not where we want to be between law enforcement in Minnesota and the communities, especially when it comes to Black and brown. And that to me is a big disconnect between politicians, especially when it comes to on the Republican side, because this is from a Republican legislator. And this is where, to me, I really have a disconnect. I won't even say a disconnect, but maybe it is a disconnect. But I don't trust people that have already been indoctrinated into a system. And this is where my whole thing with Republicans. I am a Republican in Minnesota. I'm in my BPOU. I haven't really been active, but now that I'm one of Philip Parrish's county ambassadors. That's what I feel like, to get Philip's name out here and to get voters behind him. I have to be a part of my local BPOU. So I got to be more involved. And that to me is something big, because I really feel like the legislators that we have out here, I really don't feel like it's, instead of, they want to be Minnesota nice, and Minnesota nice in some people's eyes is backstabbing them, is not being really upfront, and I see it more as passive aggressive. People don't really say what's on their chest, and to me, that's what the whole thing when it comes to Minnesota nice is really about. But this, to me, I really, I do really see a big problem with this legislation, and I think that it's something that people need to talk about. I want to talk about 962. They call it due process for law enforcement. And look, on the surface, that sounds like something everybody should get behind. Fairness, protections, procedures, cool. But let's not play dumb. When you start adding layers of protection to systems that already struggle with accountability, you got to ask yourself, who is this really protecting? Because in communities like ours, due process too often turns into delayed justice or no justice at all. Officers get shielded, investigations drag out, and families are left waiting while trust keeps bleeding out into the streets. We're not just asking for fairness, we're against imbalance. And that's what's crazy to me, because, like, how does this bring the community and the police together? To me, it drags them further apart, because we already can't get any kind of, they always say that, oh, you can't be a police officer and not have any write-ups, or not have any. It's like, what do you mean? Like, just because, this is one part where I don't really understand when it comes to um, a lot of people, even when it comes to on the Republican side. And this is the one thing that I gotta say, is that there is tons of paperwork and court documents and other things that even show you that police um, aren't police for the right reasons. They're not here to serve and protect the impoverished and poor communities. Because what is Hennepin County doing right now out at the Whipple building? What happened yesterday? And I know a lot of people maybe don't know, but I'll tell you like this, is that there was a protest um, at the Whipple building. There was 38 arrested. And I know some people there were being peaceful, but this is what happens when you don't control people that are out there to protest, but not to protest it the way that you are. So you're putting yourself in harm's way when you bring your family, your kids, or anybody to any protest. I had to learn this all the way back in 2020 when I brought a group to Minneapolis, and the largest mass arrest in Minnesota history was the 646. And I knew right there from that situation what happened. I had no control of how to keep people safe. I'm gonna be honest, because when the police swarmed up, in there, they shut down the other part of the highway and made it seem like it was more about not. It's like, so where we were arrested on I-94 was right where we were going to get off at. And that's where they arrested us. That's where they kettled us. That's where, police pulled up on one side. They were up on the bridges, saying everybody was under arrest. That's when I knew I couldn't protect people. Not the way that I wanted to. I knew there that you can only do the things that you can control. And I can't control other people's behavior. I cannot control other people's behavior. And it always was peculiar to me because I'm going to say peculiar, right? Because I remember being in a meeting for this, and the route wasn't to go on I-94, but all of a sudden it switched. And I don't know why it did, but it did. And I'm just, to be honest, I'm pissed about that whole interaction that happened that night. Is because I took people who were fighting for Black Lives Matter, and not the organization, but the actual people, and I got them arrested. Like, how do you feel as a person when you know that you caused others harm and there wasn't nothing you could do about it? I had to sit back and take it. And that's where I figured I can't save everybody. I can't say that it's going to be peaceful. I can't say that it's going to be. So that's why I don't go out there. I don't go out there because, first of all, that doesn't make change. That doesn't make people that sit on the lawmaking side as people that feel like they need to listen to us. And that's what's really sad, is because there really isn't that many Republicans. Not when it comes to fighting by any means necessary, because they only fight when they tell them to. It's never about changing. I don't know, maybe it is. But I can tell you right now that change, it doesn't come overnight. And it comes by people getting involved. It happens by people paying attention. And that's what I see what's happening. I do see a lot of people waking up because they realize, even the people that I know that live out in the suburbs, and things that are happening to them that they see, hey, everything ain't right. Because a lot of this shit is affecting people's lives, is affecting people's livelihoods. People have died over the fraud. People have been incarcerated, innocent, because police have lied. Prosecutors lied, railroaded. And yet, still here we are. We're fighting about things that should have been happening 20 years ago if people were paying attention. But because people were more worried about what was, actually, they weren't worried about what was going on around them, because they were more worried about them, their family. But when those things start to affect your family, your loved ones, you got to stand up. You got to stand up. I'm going to be 100 with that. You got to stand up. Because there comes a point in time where enough is enough. Enough is enough. It doesn't surprise me, man. These people, I want to get to something with that just came out about the Minnesota progressive, not progressive, I don't know why the hell I just said that. About the Minnesota Promise Act. And I want to show you something that Ryan, this will come out today at some time today. They did a report, investigative report. But I think people should.
Up for grabs, intended for disadvantaged small. All right, I'm tracking your tax dollars, nearly 100 million of it. Here's what I'm working on. I want to turn this camera around. Have you seen these billboards? It's the Minnesota Promise Grant, up to $50,000 up for grabs, intended for disadvantaged small businesses. But here's what happened when I started trying to vet the list of winners. I found a housing stabilization company, remember that program, that has billed Medicaid millions of dollars. I found a home health care company that had its license revoked a couple years ago. And then I found a list of hundreds of names of people with no information about what their business is and what they do. That's what I'm working on for Monday. By the way, if you know something about the Minnesota Promise Act you think I should know, you know where to reach me. All right, I'm tracking.
So that is a report that people should pay attention to, especially when it comes to the Minnesota Promise Act. So I think people, when this comes out and they see that the things that they thought were actually helping poor people were not, and that's sad. One thing that I want to show you is Robert Johnson did this video in 2022, and I'm going to play it again. It's the Minnesota oversight failure and grant fraud, right? Because a lot of people, if they would have paid attention, they would have seen the links between the waste and fraud in the Black community and would have known that what was going on was easily open to the Somali community. Not only just to the Somali community, but really to a lot of the immigration community. So watch this. This is Minnesota Regulatory Agencies and Registration. This is Minnesota oversight failure and grant fraud.
Hey, I'm just going to real quick go through this PowerPoint about Minnesota regulatory agencies. So they're not performing their oversight job. Businesses don't have to register. They only enforce things on who they want to. There's tons of nonprofits and businesses that are not registered in the state. DBAs, you can go down the list. Churches registering as a DBA, whatever. Licensing, what I'm saying by the licensing not required is that's for construction, for professional services like mental health. You can go down the list. So unless somebody actually looks into it, they're not going to do anything. And half the time, they're not going to do anything anyway. I know with the mental health stuff, they did actually do something with Salem Inc. stuff. But there's a whole bunch of stuff like that that's going on, especially with the taxes and whatever else, right? And also for the housing. So the people working on housing aren't required to have licenses because the city won't even check it. They'll just sign off on it, right? And then the background checks for working with youth. I have a data request in for the city of Minneapolis Public Schools. They still haven't gotten back to me on anything with the background checks for New Salem's Educational Youth Initiative. Okay. DOL and federal housing guidelines not followed. Inspectors sign off anyway. For the Section 8 stuff, they just pencil whip it. And same thing for the city's individual rental housing laws. And I have a video where me and Chaz actually called out to one of the cities. And it was a smaller city. And they basically said as much, that they will allow us to fudge a whole bunch of stuff in order to be able to get people in there until we were able to get it up to code. No, it needs to be up to code. Okay, the Secretary of State, again, they're not registered or doing business as a different name. You have landlords, rental agencies, churches, nonprofits. The churches, nonprofits also run under a duplicate LLC. Mother's Love also has an LLC. Salem Inc. also has an LLC. That type of thing. Safe Streets is just a straight LLC. It's not a nonprofit. Yet they're getting bills directly apportioned to them, right? So direct grants and loans to LLC orgs affiliated with Bill Author. Bobby Joe Champion is some of these people's actual lawyer. He has represented Flowers before. He has represented McAfee before. And a couple other ones. So, like, if you're doing up bills directly for, you know what I mean? And he's really involved with KMLJ and all that. Previously with CSI, that gets interesting. Please look up CSI. Bobby Joe Champion had an ethics investigation into him over CSI. The Republicans did not check to see whether or not this was done, because he didn't. Okay, he did not register with the Secretary of State. So his fiscal agent wasn't a part of that. For Clarence Hightower, that was a fiscal agent through all that debacle, right? And that was New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. Now they have True True Vine, whatever. I have it on the other one, other slideshow, the exact name, and I can get that for you in a second here. Okay. The bill's author staff works at nonprofit. They got the money. As Turning Point for one of them. They had a big thing about it. Well, it's not that she was working for them, but she was working for them during the time that they got the money portioned directly to them. Bill Author works with community orgs that push votes for them. They do grants for votes. Lack of oversight. LLC nonprofit with the same name. Yep, and then no reporting and oversight requirements. Undue influence. The community org selected is not an open bidding process. They're based on previous involvement with Minnesota Heals 2.0 prior to the 2022 elections. The community orgs, they also contract with the Downtown Improvement District. I have a whole paper that I've written on that, which I can get you guys. I wrote it for my ethics class about the undue influence and the legal problems and constitutional problems with how it runs, right? So it's not just my opinion. No, there's actual legal arguments behind it, right? In the Downtown Improvement District has an undue influence over the justice system. They have their own judge, prosecutor, etc. They also are able to tax, right? They levy taxes. They get the city to bite off on that, and the city's beholden to them. It's the reason why they have such a focus on Downtown Improvement District. Money's ever used for operations not in the community awarded for. They're not using the money as much in North Minneapolis and stuff like that for actually doing services. They'll do a small little bit there, and then they'll go do these other things where they're getting paid twice because they're actually getting paid on top of their grant money. And known criminal affiliations. One of them being Shazma Dixon was their billing for New Salem, right? Now here's her stuff for where she did the fraud. And here's her involvement with 21 Days of Peace and New Salem. Okay. So, Marlon Ace Boogie Moore, another fraudster. He also ended up getting rid of evidence. He destroyed evidence in that. And you can go down the list. Here's the legislative update on that. All right. And here he is signing for a contract with Minneapolis Schools as the CEO of Salem Inc. And here's their contract.
Right.
Okay. The actual provider for the education services with that, the individual they have on that, isn't listed as an employee on the 990s. So that gets interesting. Okay. I'll open up another one here.
You better close some of them tabs sometime, buddy. A lot of tabs open. If that's tabs. There's a lot. Damn. Jones Day. That's what people really need to pay attention to is that Jones Day.
Let me see if I can get this pull up. There we go.
That's what Andy Luger.
Okay, the Jones Day contract.
Robbins.
So here's the thing: is Luger actually got a activist hired on to respond to some of the stuff and put pressure on the city. That was Leslie Raymond.
Leslie Redmond. Hold on, I want to go back for a second. And
put pressure on the city.
I want to show this right here because I know Kristen Robbins brings up Andrew Luger a lot in that fraud and waste committee. But I want to tell her, and I want her to make her understand, is the reason why this fraud wasn't looked at, and you can put Andrew Luger out there all day, he allowed it a lot to go on. That's what you don't realize. These people, the same thing with when it comes to Walter. I showed this back in 2022. And people, this is what really frustrates me and really tells me that the Republicans aren't serious, because they took it serious when Nick Shirley put it out there, but not when community members from Minnesota was sitting there talking to them. I don't got nothing against Nick Shirley, right? I'm glad that he spotlighted the fraud from shit that we've been saying for years. And people did not take it serious until this year, until Nick Shirley, because they were more worried about the messengers and not the fucking message. And that's what's really fucking bothering me when it comes to Republicans, is because they're more worried about the messengers and not the fucking message. Because if they would have listened to the messages, and what I'm talking about messages is I'm talking about the people that came to them. And I know plenty of people that went to them and they didn't take them serious. They didn't take us serious of what was going on in Minneapolis. That's the part that really fucks with me when I mess with these Republicans. It's because I can take it back, right? All the way to 2022. When me, Marcus, fuck Todd, bitch ass, but Todd Grammons was there too. But we were behind Cicely Davis. I almost said Cicely Tyson. Scott, Matt Burke, Jensen. I mean, we were literally behind all these. And then when the elections got over with because they lost, they forgot about a lot of us that were still here in the community fighting, that were still fighting to prove that a lot of these Democrats, a lot of these leftists, a lot of these socialists were bullshit. And y'all didn't believe it. And they still, to me, they really still don't honestly believe it, because even the things that have come out and the Fraud and Waste Committee, you can tell this shit's been going on for years. I think Robin said there was an OLA report from 2011. So 15 years ago, and nothing's changed. So what does that tell people? So the people that we have in the Senate or in the House are really not here for the people, because they were more worried about not making kickbacks illegal. They weren't worried about oversight. They weren't worried about programs that whistleblowers were saying that this would make this program better. I heard a whole man this morning on the Fraud and Waste Committee. I think his name was Michael Wiedner. He gave a fucking hell of a presentation. And the shit that he was saying in 2009, they still haven't implemented GPS, cameras, to make sure that people are doing the shit that they say they're doing. And they never listened to whistleblowers. They never took Philip Paris serious. This is the thing that pisses me off about a lot of politicians in Minnesota, right? Especially when it comes to the Republican Party. I will say this, that when Philip was out here, I'm going back all the way to 2016 when he was saying shit to the legislator. He was a whistleblower. People weren't there. Shit hasn't changed since 2016. Shit hasn't changed since 2011. So why are we should really demand change right now? Because I can tell you right now, while people are still in committees and they swear this is the first time they're hearing this shit, the fraud is still going on. You still got people out there doing fraud right here and out in the open, because we don't take this shit serious. When the shit goes on and we need Republican legislators to stand up, there was a few that stood up. There was a few that I'll say this, Walter got a lot of sound bites out of that shit. But I really do feel like when it came to David Hahn and that whole Michael Broadcorp shit of how Broadcorp used this Wyoming company, Montana, whatever, because they have different laws out there and you can hide shell companies. So it's hard to get to the owner, right? There's so much paperwork you got to go through. That payment, that whole thing that started his podcast, started from this shit, is to go against Republican endorsed people. Royce White, as long as they were opponents to what the Republican Party, even though they endorsed Royce, they didn't want him. They didn't want Royce to be the candidate. That's what I want people to really to know. They didn't want Royce to be the candidate. And I don't even take Roy serious anymore because the whole Mike Lindell shit. Anybody that fucks with Mike Lindell, you're not from the streets. You have no clue what goes on down here. And the fact that Mike Lindell says, oh, I'm a recovering crack addict. Listen, man, you haven't changed. The same thing with Bobby Joe Champion. That nigga was a crackhead. You ask any nigga that's in their 60s and 70s and that was in Minneapolis, and you ask them about the fucking Champion family and cocaine. Heron. Come on, man. Them niggas was the biggest base heads. And then now all of a sudden these niggas is lawyers, state senators. I don't even get that shit. This is why I think Minnesota is a joke. We're letting former crackheads, no matter if it came to Mike Lindell, doesn't matter if it came to Bobby Joe Champion, we think that people have recovered in their life. I'm going to tell you right now, you might be able to change that you never smoke cocaine again or you never smoke crack. You didn't get rid of those behaviors because I still see them today. And the crazy part is people don't even understand what I'm talking about, especially when it comes to these voters. So I'm going to explain something to y'all. It's already been put out there that he buys his book to get money from it. So he bought it with his campaign funds and bought the book. Instead of telling people who he really is, he wanted to make money off of it. That is crack behavior. That still, to me, is crackhead behavior. I wouldn't trust you as far as I can throw you, and that's not very far. So I don't understand how, I get it though, because people trust him because he's white. I'm going to be straight up honest. It's because he's white. If that was a black man who had smoked crack and all of a sudden changed his life, people wouldn't say, oh, that nigga ain't changed. He's still him. He's still him. He's still the same old crackhead motherfucker that he is. Just because he got a little money. Y'all think that shit really matters? You think the only thing that Mike Lindell has going for him is that he's white? That's it. That's it. Because I will tell you right now, there's no way in hell I would vote for a former. This is why I don't even get into politics and run. I'm talking about I'm involved, but actually running is because I still have behaviors. I shouldn't even say behaviors, habits from the streets when I was in that life. Because I can tell you right now, it's the same thing that these people were, oh, I love you. What's the number one of the rules to the streets? Love will get you killed. But they tell you they love you, but love will get you killed. And it's not your enemies that you got to watch out for. It's the motherfuckers that call you bro. It's the motherfuckers that you call mom. That's what's crazy. And we still don't call that shit out. This is why I don't fuck with many people. This is why I do not fuck with many people, because too many people think what's going on is right when it's actually morally wrong. When it's actually morally wrong. Everybody wants to see in the lens of politics. That's what I see. I see when you look at the world from my view, that's how you see this shit. This is how you see that shit. I see Democrats coming out here. Oh, Trump wasn't supposed to do that. Trump can't be doing that. Trump can't do this. Okay, but what the fuck have y'all done? You guys aren't protecting Americans. Nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. Let me get into this so I can get on into what I feel is wrong with the Republican Party. So let me finish this Minnesota oversight failure and grant fraud.
Now it's Leslie Raymond. Redmond. Yeah, Leslie Redmond. Here we go. And down at the bottom in the recommendations right here, okay, they got together and they got Leslie Redmond, right, to be the community leader. Well, then they also went and they contracted with the city to respond to the complaints. Okay, only a few of the lawyers had been found to be registered. They were based out of the Minnesota office. The rest of the lawyers were not. I haven't been able to find the registration. The contract was renewed under Yvette McGee Brown, and the top three minimum did not register. I have all the information there. Okay, and the contract stuff. And then you have these community guys who got in with that. Now, see, in 2022, Lugar at Minnesota Heals 2.0 and met with many of these people. Okay, so these people were already selected ahead of time, and now they're getting the money. Okay, here's a different nonprofits. You can go look those up. Minnesota Safe Streets is a big one. Greater Mount Nebo. This was Flowers' mom's church, and you can see right here what I was saying on that. It's just a DBA as Al, his mom, and Joe Spratt. And here's the CSI stuff, right? New Bethel. Missionary Baptist Church doesn't exist. They made a True Vine, and they did that up later afterwards, much later. Here's the appropriations, right? New Youth Redevelopment. Shasma was a part of that. We have the documents on that. These guys get selected to become.
And you know what's crazy is that Bobby just wrote a little, I'm going to talk about it later, but he sat there and wrote a piece talking about the anti-fraud package that Governor Walz put out. And it's like, dude, you're part of the problem. Do you not see that? That you're part of the problem? And I really don't understand that. I really, really don't understand that. Like, people have said shit and still you don't get it. Our people don't get it. And I truly don't understand that. So that was the end of the Minnesota oversight and grant fraud. And to be honest, that's a lot of the shit that you see going on today. And the same thing that Bobby had put a little post out or whatever, I'm going to talk about it later or whatever, not today, but I want to talk about when Republicans break ranks. And this is, to me, I have the biggest problem with, right? Is because what Operation Surge revealed about the Minnesota GOP is Operation Metro Surge, an aggressive immigration enforcement push carried out by federal agencies across Minnesota in late 2025 and early 2026 didn't just spark protests in the streets. It exposed fractures inside the Republican Party that many voters have never clearly seen before. While the overwhelming majority of Minnesota GOP officials stood behind the broader principle of immigration enforcement, a small but notable group publicly broke ranks, not necessarily on policy, but on execution. Their concerns wasn't about whether the law should be enforced, but how. And that distinction matters. The Republicans who spoke out, a handful of Republican lawmakers, stepped forward to question, criticize, or call for a pause in Operation Metro Surge. Their reasoning varied, but a common thread ran through all of it. All of it. The operation as carried out was creating instability. Julia Coleman, a Republican from Waconia, Coleman called for a temporary pause, roughly 30 to 60 days. in street level enforcement. Her proposal aimed to reduce tensions and reset cooperation between state and federal authorities. She framed it as a pragmatic move to end what she described as a political standoff between, I put former, I don't know why that happened, former President Donald Trump and Governor Walz, while still supporting immigration enforcement in principle. Nolan West, Republican from Blaine. West was among the most direct critics. He openly stated that Operation Metro Surge was causing more harm than good, warning that it increased danger for law enforcement and contributed to chaos in already tense communities. He didn't just call for adjustments, he called for the operation to end. Abler Anoka, Jim Abler, Republican Anoka, Abler rejected the premise of the surge itself, saying it went far beyond targeting violent offenders. He argued that deploying thousands of federal agents was unnecessary and called for a full withdrawal. Dave Baker, Republican from Wilmer, Baker took a more measured stance, supporting a pause in enforcement operations. His position reflected concern about escalation rather than outright opposition to enforcement. Rarick, Marion Rarick, she's a Republican. And I really do believe she comes out here and says a lot of things. I wish she never came out with this, is because how long have Minnesota people been talking about how Minnesota law enforcement's, their agencies, racially profile? And I don't see legislators in the House or the Senate talking about that. But now that you want to talk about racial profiling that was happening from ICE, that's kind of crazy to me, right? So Rarick raised concerns tied to racial profiling, echoing complaints from local law enforcement and community leaders about how operations were being conducted on the ground. I'm going to say this, right? For a very, very long time, didn't matter if it was MPD, it didn't matter if it was St. Paul, Duluth, Rochester, they all had cases of racial profiling. And they still do. We still have policies on the books from black codes, redlining. I don't see them fighting that. That's just what's crazy to me is like we have such hypocritical politicians. They really don't stand on something. They waver. I see a lot of wavering because they're worried about certain constituents. Not that it's the truth. They're more worried about how people, the leftists, are going to take it when they should be more worried about the voters in their own communities. And if people actually seen, I know they get a one side narrative, and I'm glad that Allison, I think that's how you say Alistair, he's out there. I seen Becky G, Zach X. We need to watch those people. I'm not saying I agree with how they, because I do feel like counter protesting, that shit is, we're past that. That doesn't help. We're not solving any solution, any problems. We're just creating more chaos. So for me, the people that are still want to go out there and protest, those are the people that we do not need to fuck with. I'm going to be honest, when it comes to some of our politicians, Marsha Howard, doesn't matter if it's Andy Smith in Rochester, I think her name is Sandra Feist, Omar Fattah, Muhammad Noor. We need to watch people like that because for how long has fraud been going on and they don't stop it? They don't even attempt to stop it. They retaliate against the whistleblowers, against the people that are out here screaming about the fraud, and nobody listens because the messenger is, I don't get that. They demonize the messenger. They do all kinds of shit. Everything but call it the truth. And that's what's really bothersome to me, because you can put out the information and people can see it, but they still don't get it. And I know a lot of people see what's going on in Minnesota. Doesn't matter if they're in, I don't even know how to say it, the International Falls, or where Philip was just at this last weekend, Roseau. We all have different perspectives. And I get that, right? I grew up in an area where uh, you did anything for survival. And a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people have never had a struggle meal. They're like, what the fuck is that? These people out here in the suburbs, I shouldn't even say it's the suburbs, in rural, they never seen cockroaches. Uh, it'd be weird. Uh, and you can really show that there's a disconnect between people that live in urban and inner cities, between the rural areas, because a lot of things they don't see in person. They either see it on the TV or they see it from videos that they watch, but they never see those things in their own communities. That's why Rochester's getting out of hand, because the things that you see in Rochester used to be the things that you would see only in Minneapolis and St. Paul, because they tried to keep it to those two areas, but they can't do that anymore. They can't keep it controlled, or even because it's migrated. It's migrated from inner city areas out to rural areas because of I-94, getting rid of the Rondo community. And look at now, them trying to put in the light rail over north. That's going to really gentrify North Minneapolis. And you don't see black leaders standing up against it. You see them trying to get their money. And I don't understand why people don't see that as a problem. Right? A party united until it wasn't. Let's be clear. These voices represented a minority. Most Minnesota Republicans supported the operation's goals and pointed the finger at Democratic policies, particularly so-called sanctuary approaches, for creating the conditions that led to such a large-scale federal response in the first place. That's what people don't want to talk about. And I really see, this is the thing, right? All these operations, they just weren't in Minnesota. You just heard about Minnesota because we have certain policies and ordinances. We have separation powers. They don't ever want to talk about that. All these operations went on in other states, and you didn't see half the problems that were happening in Minnesota because we have sanctuary policies. But what made this moment different is that dissent didn't come from the usual political opposition. It came from within. And it came only after things escalated. Reports of violence, including the shootings of U.S. citizens like Alex Pretty and Renee Macklin Good, combined this widespread protest and community disruption, forced a reaction. These weren't early warnings. These weren't early warnings. They were responses to follow. That's what I want people to understand, right? The shooting, all this didn't have to happen. None of this had to happen. I'm going to tell you right now that in this training, they talk about that little ice out training that you should listen to commands. So why didn't Renee Good? Because she put her life in jeopardy. She put her life in jeopardy because you allowed these ICE officers or CBP, whatever they are, to make split-second decisions. And were they going to make the best ones? No, because we already know that they're not trained the way that they should be. So again, I'm going to say this. This is people's fault that go out here thinking, I know my rights. I know my rights. Okay. That's why people end up in jail or they end up dead, because they don't understand their rights. They don't understand their rights. I'm going to be honest. They don't understand them. A lot of people, they understand their privilege. Why is this happening to me? This doesn't happen in my community because you're fighting for black people. Right now, this how with Renee Good and Alex Pretty, they died supposedly fighting for immigrants. When actually they died because of bad decisions. Let's just say it. That's why nobody wants to have the conversation about accountability. Accountability. Alex Pretty and Renee Good put their lives in jeopardy because they had untrained officers who had to make split-second decisions. And because of the rhetoric that comes out, they didn't know if Renee was going to try to do something to them. They didn't know if Alex was going to do something with his gun. The same things that we tell local law enforcement agencies are the same shit that these motherfuckers are saying to the feds. And it blows my mind. I've never seen Mary Mortery come out with so many statements from that motherfucking Hennepin County prosecutor's office. Because you never fought this hard for Ricky Cobb. You never fought this hard. So why are you? Because they're white. Let's really call it what it is. They are only making this kind of, if they would have been black people, you don't hear this about Keith Porter. You don't hear that about Keith Porter. Nothing. You don't even hear anything about the lives lost from police brutality. So, again, where was this energy before? This is where voters need to start asking harder questions. Because when it comes to government overreach, misuse of authority, or even large-scale fraud tied to public programs, many of these same voices have been noticeably quiet. No urgent letters, no calls for pauses, no public pressure campaigns. Yet when a federal operation creates visible chaos, when it becomes politically risky, that's when some officials suddenly find their voice. That inconsistency should not go unnoticed. The bigger issue I see is accountability. If accountability only shows up when it's safe, or when public pressure makes silence impossible, then it's not real accountability. It's political survival. Minnesota voters, especially those praying, or those close, or let me start over. Minnesota voters, especially those paying close attention, are beginning to see a pattern. Strong words when backlash is loud. Silence when issues are complex, are politically inconvenient. Carefully worded concern instead of consistent leadership. It's time for a reality check. At some point, this stops being about one operation and starts being about representation. If elected officials don't speak up on fraud, don't challenge misuse of taxpayer dollars, don't raise concerns and until damage is already done, then voters have every right to ask whether those officials are truly leading, are simply reacting. Because leadership isn't about showing up when it's easy. It's about showing up before things get hard. And this is my final thought, is Minnesota Republicans largely stood united on immigration enforcement, but Operation Metro Surge revealed who was willing to question tactics when things spiraled. The real question now is whether voters are paying attention to when those voices speak up and when they don't. Because if we're being honest, we need to start voting out some of these so-called Republicans, especially the ones who have never seemed to sound the alarm when it comes to fraud, waste, and accountability. But suddenly find their voice when the political pressure hits home. And that's crazy to me. It's like, why are only elected officials speaking up about Operation Metro Surge? Well, we couldn't get this out of. I'm gonna be honest. We get a lot of lip action when it comes to the fraud. We get a lot of lip action. We don't never see really actions. Not any kind of actions are taken, not even when it comes to accountability or even when it comes to responsibility. Because when you look at these committees and you see maybe DHS in there or OIG, and you hear the excuses and the finger blaming, not the finger blaming, the finger pointing, we seriously have an issue because nobody wants to talk about what's really happening. Because everybody wants to talk about anything, not something, but anything. And that's the sad part. That is the sad part, is that we have way too many people that would rather be, I guess, in that moment. Maybe it's not even really in the moment, but to me, it's bullshit. It's like, we got to be better. Got to be better. Couple of things. This is one thing that I wanted to talk about too, is Walter, even 22 hours ago, came out with this. Once again, one guy is able to find red flags that entire state agencies somehow cannot. We need top to bottom reform of the administration, and that's only going to come from a new governor, not tied to the current regime, a Republican. And to me, when I take that in the current regime, I really see that as somebody that's in the House, the Senate, because how can we trust? I want to be serious. How can we trust? How can we trust that people are going to do the things that they said that they're going to do? Because we're not seeing any actions. We're seeing a lot of blaming. Instead of taking accountability and saying, yep, I fucked up. I could have done more. We don't hear that. We don't hear that out of Republicans in Minnesota. Not when it comes to Royce White, not when it comes to Michelle Tafoya, the only one that we really hear accountability from is Phil Parrish. That is Phil Parrish. So if we want a leader, if we want a new governor that isn't tied to this new regime, to this current one, I shouldn't say new, but current regime, then it has to be somebody that's not inside of it. Can't be somebody that's in the Senate. It can't be somebody that's in the House. Because what actions have y'all done the whole time you've been on the appeal? Nothing. Sound bites. Nobody has been sounding the red alarm. Not when it comes to people in the Senate, because I will tell you right now, you have people in the Senate that they've passed bills with. Democrats, Bobby Joe Champion, even know that there is evidence of fraud. But the people are more worried about the Somalians. And that's not even a word to Somalis. They're not worried about the communities that are in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Duluth, Rochester, Owatonna. But only when it comes to the Somalian community. And that's fucking crazy to me. I really do have a hard time with this shit. This is yesterday. There was a protest. I talked about it earlier. People were saying, oh, they shouldn't be doing this. They're being too hard. Here's my thoughts. You come down here, and I'm not saying to everybody, but if you're around people that are doing shit that is morally wrong, then you should stand up and say, hey, we're not doing that here. We're not doing that here. But yet that's not what you see. You have people that are enablers. That's what I don't understand. So let's watch this video real quick. That's why I picked you up.
I got you. There you go. Yep, just back up.
That nigga hit like,
You gotta be on the sidewalk or you're under arrest. On the sidewalk or you're under arrest.
You almost did, yeah. That's why I picked you up. We don't throw it down behind us. Back up. Down on your stomach. Back up.
Andy Nagel. Andy Nagel.
Take your legs.
You guys gotta clear back.
what do you want me to do?
I was standing there.
I was standing.
I was told that's a free speech zone. I was told that's a free speech zone. 612 444.
Hey. 605 351 2804.
Number? What's the number? 605
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't understand it because they outnumber them. So I don't like if you're seriously fighting, changing, reform, and but I guess this doesn't come down to right or wrong. It comes down to Republican and Democrat, and that's what's crazy to me. This here happened Saturday night down in Cincinnati, Ohio. This was 13 people shot at the Riverfront Center down in Cincinnati. So watch this.
Units on scene and so we are live here at Riverfront Live. This is right here on Kellogg Avenue, right in front of the UDF gas station, where Cincinnati Police and Fire Department was dispatched for a report of a shooting, multiple victims. As per units on scene and the hospital, they have said that 12 people have been reportedly shot or have been transported to the hospital at this time. I believe there's some people may still be here on scene that suffered either minor injuries or we don't know the extent of injuries at this time. So we are live here at River.
So that was down in Iowa, or not Iowa, Cincinnati, Ohio. Here's Austin, Texas. I know people are hearing a lot about this, and this is when the shots first rang out. I thought people were really honest.
Oh my God! Oh my God! What is going on? What the fuck is going on? Jesus fucking Christ! What the fuck?
We living in crazy times, bro. We're living in crazy times, man. That shit is wild. The times that we living in is crazy as hell. Crazy. Crazy, 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 crazy. And it's like, I don't understand why people don't, like, does it honestly matter about politics? Oh Lord, this should be crazy. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office launches evidence portal to investigate alleged unlawful behavior by federal officers or federal agents. It's fucking stupid. They do everything but accept an evidence portal. I don't fuck them people. That's why I don't take them serious. I can't take them serious at all because they only do things that are. Oh, that's I think that's on Wednesday. Yeah, because Walls does see oversight, fraud, and misuse of funds. This is when they so I won't be able to episode Wednesday because I got doctor's appointments, but that should be really really interesting to watch this committee hearing because you'll see Governor Walls and I don't know who else is supposed to testify that day. Let's see if we can find out. All right, learn more. Let's say press releases. Blow the whistle. No, I'm just kidding. Comer announces on March 4th. Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison on March 4th. So again, that's something to watch as well. There will be stuff happening all week that, in my eyes, people need to pay attention to. It doesn't matter if it's committee hearings or things that are going on in the legislature, or if there's things going on in Washington, D.C. I would be bogus as fuck if I didn't talk about what was going on in Iran. Because I don't really know about too much about Iran. I'll be honest. That to me, I know they said something. I think I heard this morning that it was 47 years. They were under an authoritarian regime. It was only, the leaders, whatever. I know there was a lot of things that they were doing when it came to people in Iran were taking out their hijabs and the things that were covering their faces. The women were, and I know you've had people coming out saying that, oh, it's wrong, but then here in America, you're not seeing people fight over that at all, and that's what's really wild to me. Yeah, it's crazy,